Few hypothetical matchups capture the imagination like the primal brutal thought experiment. One gorilla versus 100 men. It's a question that straddles absurdity and fascination, combining biology, psychology, and game theory into one chaotic scenario. Could one of nature's most powerful primates take on a small army of unarmed humans? And what would it take for the men to win? This video unpacks the matchup through multiple lenses: strength, strategy, fear, ethics, and even cultural significance, to provide a grounded answer to an age-old internet debate. Strap in, because this is more than a barroom bet. It's a study in human nature versus animal power. The gorilla, nature's powerhouse. Gorillas are among the most powerful land mammals on Earth. Specifically, the silverback gorilla, the dominant male of a troop, is an embodiment of brute strength, territorial aggression, and primal instinct. A typical adult male silverback weighs between 300 and 430 pounds, 136 to 195 kilograms, with a stocky build and incredibly dense muscle. Despite being shorter than the average human, usually around 5.5 feet, 1.7 meters, when standing upright, a gorilla's strength is often estimated to be 4 to 10 times greater than a human's. Some experts believe a gorilla could deadlift over 1,800 pounds if trained. Gorillas also possess jaw strength of up to 1,300 psi, pound force per square inch, greater than most big cats. They are capable of sprinting short distances up to 20 miles per hour, and their limbs are not only strong but hyper-coordinated, allowing them to throw, strike, and grapple with lethal precision. What makes gorillas even more dangerous is their animal instinct. They don't hesitate, overthink, or panic. When provoked, they explode with fury and focus that few humans can match in a life or death scenario. The men, weak alone, powerful together. Now let's define the human side of the equation. Are we talking about elite soldiers? Professional fighters? No. Most hypothetical discussions assume 100 average adult males, physically capable but not trained for combat or teamwork in high-stress situations. The average adult man weighs about 170 to 200 pounds, stands at 5'9", and has moderate strength. A man might bench press 135 to 185 pounds and have a grip strength between 100 and 120 psi. Clearly, the average human is no match for a gorilla one-on-one. However, humans have numbers, and more importantly, brains. While an individual human is physically inferior to most wild predators, collective coordination, tool use, and problem-solving have allowed us to dominate Earth. In theory, 100 men working in unison could overpower nearly any animal alive today. But that assumes cohesion, courage, and a willingness to sacrifice, which are not guaranteed under extreme stress. Round 1. Open field combat. Let's start with a classic scenario, an open battlefield, no weapons, no barriers. Just one gorilla and 100 men in a circular arena. At the start, most men would hesitate. Seeing a 400-pound ape roaring, chest-thumping, and charging would trigger fear, even terror, in many. That emotional response can't be overstated. Gorillas are intimidating, and humans have an evolutionary instinct to fear such predators. Assuming the group decides to attack anyway, the first wave of men will suffer gruesome injuries. The gorilla could easily crush bones, tear muscle, and knock out or kill a person in 1 or 2 blows. If the men rush in uncoordinated, they become victims, not victors. However, gorillas are not invincible. They have limited stamina, and they can't see in all directions. If enough men swarm the gorilla, some will get behind it, climb onto it, and attempt to hold down limbs or blind it. Over time, if the group is committed to the fight, even as dozens are injured or killed, they could wear the gorilla down. In an open field with no weapons, the men win, but at a heavy cost. Up to 30 or 40 could be severely injured or killed. The key is overwhelming force and an ability to overcome panic. Round 2. Confined space combat. Now imagine this battle takes place in a confined space, such as a large cage or enclosed room. Suddenly, the gorilla's strength becomes even more dangerous. The creature doesn't need to move far to lash out at multiple targets. The men, meanwhile, have limited mobility and no room to coordinate. Instead of waves of attackers coming from all sides, the gorilla can focus its energy in a smaller radius, dealing more damage more quickly. It's easier for it to use walls to its advantage, corner individuals, and avoid being surrounded. In a tight arena, the gorilla has an edge. The men could still win through attrition, but at a significantly higher cost in lives and injuries. Round 3. Armed men versus unarmed gorilla. Add simple weapons to the equation, sticks, rocks, or clubs, and the tide shifts quickly. Humans are natural tool users, and even crude weapons increase effectiveness significantly. Rocks can break bones. Wooden poles can jab from a distance. Coordinated groups with these tools could keep the gorilla at bay while injuring it. Strikes to vulnerable areas, eyes, joints, throat, could disable the gorilla without requiring dozens of men to sacrifice themselves. Now introduce improvised nets or ropes, and humans could even trap or immobilize the animal. Weapons are a force multiplier. With even the most basic tools, the humans win decisively, with far fewer injuries and less risk. Round 4. Firearms in the fight. If firearms enter the picture, the debate is over. One man with a rifle or handgun could take down a gorilla from a distance. While gorillas are resilient, they're not bulletproof. A few well-placed shots to the head or torso would kill it. The men win instantly with guns. The gorilla doesn't stand a chance against modern weaponry. The X factor, fear and coordination. One of the biggest challenges in this scenario isn't physical, it's psychological. Most people freeze under extreme stress. When faced with a raging gorilla tearing through friends and strangers, many men would instinctively run, hide, or panic. Even in military units, panic can disrupt coordination. In this imagined scenario, the 100 men would need an almost military-style discipline to survive with minimal casualties. On the other hand, if panic sets in, the gorilla could isolate individuals, picking them off before the group regroups. In a chaotic environment, it could be a bloodbath. So, while numbers favor humans, victory isn't guaranteed unless fear is overcome and strategy is executed. Biological and tactical realities. Humans have certain innate advantages, despite being physically weaker. Endurance. Humans can sustain activity longer than gorillas, which are built for short bursts of violence. Strategy. Even basic communication allows for ambushes, flanking, and distraction. Learning and adjustment. If the first attack fails, humans can adapt tactics. The gorilla, while immensely strong, is limited in flexibility. It reacts to threats, not strategies. Once overwhelmed, it can't counter-coordinate. However, its explosiveness, resistance to pain, and high threshold for trauma make it a very difficult target. Even as it's being subdued, the gorilla could kill or maim more attackers. Ethics and cultural fascination. Why are we so obsessed with this scenario? The gorilla versus men debate has become a popular internet meme, sparking thousands of forum posts, Reddit threads, and YouTube breakdowns. It touches on deep cultural ideas, man versus nature, the eternal struggle between human civilization and wild power. Group versus individual. Can the collective overcome the elite? Violence as entertainment. This taps into the same instincts that made ancient gladiator battles popular. But there's an ethical side. Gorillas are intelligent, emotionally complex, and critically endangered. The idea of pitting one against humans in a death match feels barbaric, reminiscent of ancient Roman cruelty. That discomfort is part of the intrigue. It forces us to question our relationship with violence, entertainment, and the natural world. How the men could win, a tactical blueprint. To win with minimal loss, the men must act like a military unit. Here's a simplified plan. Divide into units. Create groups of 10 to 15 with designated roles: distraction, attackers, support. Bait and flank. Send runners to draw the gorilla into vulnerable positions. Use elevation and reach. Men standing on higher ground or with long poles could attack from relative safety. Exploit terrain. If the environment has trees, boulders, or barriers, use them to trap or corral the gorilla. Coordinate swarming. Once the gorilla is downed or fatigued, swarm and pin it. Avoid frontal attacks. Still, success requires sacrifice. There's no victory without casualties in a bare-handed confrontation. Why this debate matters? It's easy to dismiss this as a dumb internet meme, but it reflects something profound about us. We're drawn to questions of power, who has it, how it's used, and what it costs. We wonder if unity can overcome raw strength. We test the limits of our dominance over nature. In the end, the one gorilla versus 100 men debate isn't really about fighting. It's about fear, courage, intelligence, and the brutal mechanics of survival. And make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates.